So from my point of view, we look at how the entry into aged care is being affected. So basically it's about accommodation charges, bonds of rooms and costs. So the first step the government made was changing the laws on, or the rules on how they assess clients. They used to assess high and low care, and that's been abolished. Now it's just requiring care. And the reason for that was when people were assessed as low care, you were allowed to charge a bond. When they were assessed as high care, it was means tested, but in government-funded homes, the high care didn't require a bond. So the government subsidised those beds. So what they've done is they've changed the first step in the process so that no longer do they say that someone is high care, therefore even if they are high care, they are just requiring care, so you can charge a bond. So that's to change the first step. And it's like how they change things from being a highway, Nepean Highway to Point Nepean Road. Right. So the government doesn't have to pay for the maintenance of the road anymore, because when it's considered a highway, so it's similar in that sort of aspect. So they've done that. Then on top of that comes in the second phase, where they want to look at how we cost the charges to the client. Now, it's all means tested and it's always fluid, and you can't have a single amount or figure on what a person has to pay. So it's really difficult from the health organisation point of view, because we actually don't have the resources to financially review every client and their financial assets prior to admission. Prior to this, the government would do an asset test. It was pretty simplified, and we'd use a system that or a calculation that they'd given us to use to assess and to get that costing. That's been abolished as well. So we don't have a set formula anymore. It's all fluid. You have to look at, what you offer in the room, what you can charge. It's all guidelined, and in a way can be easier for our homes because they are quite generic. They're not fancy. So because they're public health, they don't have all the mod cons that a lot of places do. So the private homes are finding it a lot more difficult because they offer things like cinema rooms and billiard rooms and other things.
Expensive.
So and they actually are now having to put a price on that as an extra for a client and stuff. So that's we're lucky where we can just look at the basic room and the basic sort of standard application. But what you'll probably find overall is that most facilities, sites and whatever else, financial sort of capability they have, they're going to do a blanket amount because they simply cannot afford to individually assess every client that enters. So potentially for the site, there's revenue losses there already, because you can't just request in the bond, then that client's going to go back to the government and report you that you've overcharged them. So we have to undercharge to stay safe. Because we can't afford to put into it the effort to work out what they should be paying. You're never going to find all their assets anyway. So we're going to have to undercharge and provide the care. So it's really, really convoluted. At the end of the day, the outcome for us is probably that, beds are going to be sold, or most of them are going to be privatised because simply can't afford to keep them. But that's what the government wants anyway, because the beds cost too much money in aged care, in public health. So it's all sort of for that reason. So,